2 years had passed, and Joseph was still in the prison, when one day Pharaoh woke up with a strange dream, called all of his men, his wise men, his magicians and sorcerers, and he looked at them and he said, "Tell me my dream." And so they began to discuss in the groups what his dream could mean. And finally one of them humbly came before the king and he said, "Oh, Pharaoh, none of us can tell you your dream. Who can tell you your dream and what it means? No one in all the land or in all the world can do that." And that is when the cupbearer remembered, and he came before the king, and he said, "Oh, great Pharaoh, I have sinned for these last 2 years. For when I was in prison, there was a young Hebrew there, and I had a strange dream, and it bothered me just as yours bothered you. And I told him my dream, and he gave me the meaning of it, and it came true, and he said, 'Don't remember me, friend, when you leave and go to the palace.' And I have forgotten him for these last 2 years. So king, go get him, and he can tell you your dream." And so Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and Joseph came out of the prison, took a shower, changed his clothes, ate a proper meal, shaved, and went before the king, and bowed before the king. And the king looked at Joseph, and he said, I hear you can tell me my dream." And Joseph looked at him in the eyes and said, "Oh, great Pharaoh, I cannot tell you your dream, but I serve one God who can tell you your dream. And if he wants to use me to tell you your dream, he will." And Pharaoh began to tell Joseph his dream. He looked at him and he said, "There before me was the Nile River, and out of the Nile River came 7 fat cows that were luscious and fat and beefy, and they began to eat on the grain and grass outside of the river. And up after them came 7 skinny cows that were ugly and gaunt, and they came over to the 7 fat cows and gobbled them up. And I woke up, but I fell back asleep. And another dream came. There were 7 stalks of corn that grew up that were full and lush. But after them and next to them grew 7 small pieces of corn that were scorched and not full at all. And they gobbled up the good ones. And I woke up again. And that is when I called all of my men. And they cannot tell me my dream. So Joseph, tell me my dream." And Joseph looked at him and said, "Oh, king, your dream means the same thing. God is trying to tell you that what is going to happen fast and soon. Now, your first dream with the 7 cows and the 7 fat cows, meaning 7 good years of great food and harvest and growing. And after that, the 7 skinny cows came. And those represent 7 years of great famine where no food will grow throughout all the land. And it will come upon this land so fast that it is as if the 7 skinny cows are gobbling up the 7 fat cows. And the famine will begin. And the same with your other dream. 7 stalks of corn that grew up are 7 good years of crop. And the next are 7 years of famine. So king, this is what I say. Go throughout all the land and search for the wisest man you can think of, who will serve God, who will serve you, and who will get all the land's crops and food and store up for you big storehouses of great food for the 7 years, so that during the 7 years of famine, you will have more than enough food for your entire land." And so Pharaoh called all of his men, and they thought, "Who is wise enough that could do this?" And the Pharaoh came to Joseph, and he looked at him and he said, "You shall be second in command, for you trust God, and you serve him, and you are wiser than any man I have ever met." And so he gave him his royal signet ring, and he gave him a chain with a giant amulet thingy on it. I totally forgot. And he began, and he sent him out, and he said, "Go and start bringing up and building storehouses for all the food. So Joseph went throughout the land and began to gather his food, and gather food everywhere, and build storehouses. And after one storehouse was full, he would build another one and fill that one up, until the 7 years were over, and 7 years of great famine swept over the land. And everyone throughout all Egypt and throughout the surrounding cities came, and they all begged for food, and everyone survived because Joseph trusted and obeyed God. He loved him and knew he had a plan for him, from when he was in the well, from when he was being sold to Potiphar as a slave, to when he was in the prison, or to when he was in the great palace in second command. Because Joseph knew that all things work together for good for those who trust God and those who are called according to his purpose. And so Joseph did this. In the same way, if we trust God and love and obey him, who knows? Maybe we'll save an entire nation ourselves.
He's entertaining to watch.